You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And we're live. We're going to make sure that my internet connection is actually going to hold up for just a minute before I get going in this. And I think we're good. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. My name is Lance Sanderson, and I'm coming to you battling just a little bit of a chest cold, so do forgive me for that. Joining me, as always, is Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst and your Denver Broncos insider, Erick Trickel. Erick, what's going on, brother? How you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's nice and cold up here in Alaska. I wish it would start warming up. Being below zero is not fun at all, especially in my office, which is always freezing. I'm actually trying not to shiver. But, I'm super excited for what we have on the topic for you guys today. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be something enjoyable and bringing some fresh new takes to this a little bit. And after last week, I hope you guys tuned in and watched the episode that we had with Luke Polglaze on, wanting about wide receivers, and just having a college coach talking about that was tremendous. And we do hope that we are able to get him on again in the future to talk about running backs, which is another position that he has coached. But super excited to be here, as I always am.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to actually be able to join this week. I really wanted to be a part of that. I was really upset, and it's just unfortunate. I mean, sometimes life happens and there's nothing you can really kind of do about it. But guys, before we get going, we just do want to remind you to follow us both on Twitter. You can find me at SandersonMHH, and you can find Erick at Erick Trickel. Notice a CK in his name. Also, make sure you guys are following the show at DVDD_pod to get live updates on what we're doing. Just some plugs on what we've got going on, some new inside information and whatever we can possibly put on there to help just grow and get this site going just a little bit better, and get our following going. Now,
this is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Today, if you aren't following us, you will have missed out the plug that I put earlier this week about being joined by an amateur draft analyst by the name of at JRDrafts on Twitter. And we're going to pull him in here. And JR, what's going on, man? How are we doing today?
Good. I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm Joey Richards. My Twitter handle's JRDrafts. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, hey, not a problem, man. We really appreciate you coming in and dropping just a little bit more knowledge for every Broncos fan across the country. So now, Joey, a couple weeks ago, this was prior to the Combine, February 11th, you took part in a very interesting mock draft on the Draft Network, and it was the premium users. So it was kind of a live mock draft from the way that I understand it, where or people got to pick players for each team. Now, I want you to kind of just run down how the whole process worked and kind of explain your thinking and going into this entire operation.
Right. Yeah. Well, we all had like a war room of each fan base, right? So I had 3 other people in my group, and we were all assigned a team, our favorite team, and put together a big board. We were on the clock for around 5 hours each, just in case people had work, stuff like that. And you just made picks and went through by that, just kept going.
Yeah. Awesome. So obviously being on the clock and giving yourself just a little bit of time to, make your decisions and stuff like that. Right. Really just how did everything break down and shake down? Was there a big lag between the picks and everything like that? Or did it kind of move along quickly and you got an opportunity to really kind of, make good and educated guesses, educated decisions and stuff like that? Or was it really kind of fast paced?
It wasn't really that fast paced. They gave us plenty of time to make picks and talk it through with our war room and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. Everyone was really excited about it. So they were going faster at the beginning and slower at the end when all the good prospects kind of went away. But
Erick and I, we kind of tried to do something like that with Nick and Carl last year and doing on a Google spreadsheet and everything. Just, I was assigned a couple of teams, Erick, Carl, Nick, and we were assigned a couple of teams and here's how it's going to go. And we went through 4 rounds or something like that. And then
I think it was just 3 rounds.
Yeah, something like that. But it was just kind of stale. But I mean, just to be able to do and take part in some kind of an operation like that. I mean, I do a big, huge, fan-driven mock draft, something like kind of what you do every single year, and I'm really excited to get going into something like that. It's just a unique perspective on a mock draft, not just some guy, some random guy that doesn't know the insides and outs of each and every team. Now, we're going to get going and break this down because we can only have you on for just a little bit here. Now, obviously, at the top of the draft, you've got Cincinnati taking Joe Burrow. That's obvious. The Redskins with Chase Young, the Lions, Jeffrey Okudah, Giants, Isaiah Simmons, Dolphins taking Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama, the Chargers, Jedrick Wills, the offensive tackle out of Alabama, the Carolina Panthers, Tristan Wirfs, Cardinals take Derek Brown, the Jaguars take CeeDee Lamb, Browns with Andrew Thomas, the Jets with Jerry Jeudy, the Raiders, Justin Herbert, the Colts with Javon Kinlaw, the Buccaneers with Mekhi Becton, leaving a guy that is pretty popularly mocked to the Denver Broncos. Now, if you were on the clock, given this situation, who do you take and why?
Take Henry Ruggs III for sure. And the reasoning before that is it just makes too much sense. Adds spacing for the offense, and as well as adds a deep threat across from Courtland Sutton.
Yeah. You had a very interesting quote with your analysis in this, and it was adding speed to the Broncos offense is like having a good 3-point shooter in basketball. You want to elaborate on that just a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. One, I'd like to say I stole that from somebody. But two, yeah, like, for example, last year, if you have a Tim Patrick and a Courtland Sutton on both sides, the defense can condense more, cover up everything over the middle. You don't have that threat of someone burning you deep over the top. So when you do that, it opens up more gaps. Let's say you're running a zone defense or something like that. If you have that speed threat, opens up more gaps where that guy was replaced, right? You can replace where that guy was, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. And with Henry Ruggs is, as you're kind of alluding to, is that speed dictates coverage. And if you have a guy like Henry Ruggs on there, you're not going to be able to cover him with just a cornerback. You have to move a safety over to him, over that way to provide help over the top, just because there's not many corners in the NFL that can hang with that kind of speed. Granted, in the NFL with pads on, he's not running a 4.27, but he's still very fast. We've seen it plenty of times at Alabama. So, yeah, just adding that, not only the spacing and everything, but dictating the coverage and automatically opening up another weapon on the offense and taking a potential double team away from Noah Fant or Courtland Sutton is just a huge aspect that you can't get away from. Now, as we talked about, was that you did do this in the early February, and it was released on February 11th for everybody to read. And obviously the big thing was that is before the combine. So now that the combine has happened and we know how fast he is, we know how athletic he is overall, can you still see Henry Ruggs potentially being there at 15?
I have a hard time seeing it, truthfully, because guys that run that fast usually get overdrafted, one, right? And then now you also have to worry about guys behind you jumping you for those guys. Last year, for example, there was an Eagles with Deshaun Jackson and there was an Eagles without Deshaun Jackson. They were two completely different teams. So you have to worry about that as well.
Yeah, and on that whole note with the Eagles, is another team that had that happen was the Houston Texans. Yeah. With Will Fuller, they were a very dangerous passing offense. Without him, they're still dangerous, just not quite as dangerous. And so with thinking that he might not be here now, looking at some of the other names available, there was Christian Fulton, Trayvon Diggs, Laviska Shenault, Jalen Reagor, and AJ Epineza as just some of the few ones. And if there's another guy that comes to mind for you that you want to go with, that would be. But thinking Ruggs isn't there, which way would you possibly go now?
I like Laviska Shenault a lot, but the injuries scare me a little bit. If you're looking for someone that fits that same mold a little bit of Ruggs, Reagor makes sense. He did run slower than I thought he would. But for me, the guy I'd pick is Xavier McKinney. There was that Fangio wants to play more 6 DBs. A guy like that makes a lot of sense, especially when you have a Kareem Jackson who's getting up there in age, and you could potentially replace him, play him all right now, and replace him when he is gone. So.
And that makes a lot of sense, especially with the news that the Broncos just traded for A.J. Bouye, bringing in another cornerback, and now with that, potentially we're looking at Chris Harris Jr. walking, and then obviously Devontae Bosby, they said that they're not going to offer him a restricted free agent tender. So there is a need in the secondary for this Broncos team. Now, just one more quick question before we move on to round 2. there's another guy, and he absolutely blew up the combine. Coming in 6'3", 207, runs 4.39, 6.66 on the 3-cone. Denzel Mims out of Baylor. The tape looks good. The athletic testing is there. Is there any opportunity that you might maybe trade down, not necessarily take him at 15, but would you trade down and maybe target a Denzel Mims to slot on the other side of a Courtland Sutton?
I would love to pick up Denzel Mims if we could trade back, pick up extra capital, and pick up a Denzel Mims. He does offer a lot of the same of Courtland Sutton, whereas it comes with the high pointing the football and stuff like that. But he offers that speed factor that Courtland Sutton just does not have with the 4.3 speed. And yeah, I would love to do that if that's an option. I mean, I think he's wide receiver 5 on my big board. So,
okay. All right, now we're going to move on to round 2 here. You had the Denver Broncos taking Neville Gallimore, the defensive lineman out of Oklahoma, and what you said was with the Chiefs in the division, the Broncos have to find a way to bring consistent pressure with the front 4. Excuse me. As Shelby Harris and Derek Wolfe both hit free agency, interior defensive line is a big need. Now, we saw that the Broncos are probably not going to bring back Derek Wolfe. Shelby Harris, obviously, Adam Gotsis and Shelby Harris, obviously. There is a big need for this Broncos defense on the defensive line. What kind of specific plays and what kind of talents does Neville Gallimore bring to this Broncos defense in Vic Fangio's scheme?
Well, I know at the combine, Neville Gallimore, I think he ran the 3rd fastest 40 for a defensive lineman over 300 pounds, which is super impressive. So that just shows how athletic the guy is off the jump. And he wins with his quickness up there, right? He wins with his quickness up the middle, has a good arsenal of pass rush moves. If I were to do some self-scouting, I may change that pick. I just don't think he fits as well as I initially thought he would. But, yeah, that was my thought process at the time.
Well, I find it funny that you mentioned the self-scouting because the scheme fit. And I remember just after this came out that I actually talked to you about it, about how of the 5 picks, this was the one that gave me the most issue just because I don't think he's the best fit in the Vic Fangio front. So obviously got to ask, what things change now with the combine being in the past, knowing how that's it? Would your pick change now?
It would change now, and honestly, the reason is just because I watched more film. I think I watched 2 games on Neville Gallimore when I made that pick, and I watched probably the 2 best games. So, yeah, it would change, especially when we already have a guy like Draymond Jones who, I mean, I don't think you could line up Gallimore and Draymond Jones out there and feel comfortable.
Yeah, there's definitely be a little bit of concern when it comes to just being overpowered in the running game for me, lining up those 2. So looking at some of the other names that were available, there was A.J. Terrell, the Auburn cornerback, whose name I'm not going to pronounce because I'm terrible at pronouncing names, Troy Dye, my guy, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, of course, and then Austin Jackson, Brendan Ayuk, KJ Hamler, Jalen Johnson, and Cameron Dantzler. Now, Cameron Dantzler didn't have the best of the combines, and there's a lot of concern going around about him. But with changing the pick, would you be going with one of those guys or someone else?
I would go with the Auburn cornerback that we can't pronounce.
Noah Abenigine, by the way. Noah Abenigine.
I'd be going with him. I like him a lot. He's physical. He still has a lot to learn. I know he's making the transition from wide receiver to corner and made a lot of progress in that short time he was a corner. He's a physical guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I came away not super impressed with his position drills at the combine, but as a guy who's still learning the position, the technique, the fundamentals and stuff like that were sound enough to make me comfortable with saying, yeah, this is a guy that I'd be willing to take a chance on in the NFL and just being able to coach up those other finer details because the traits that you can't coach, he has. So that's the biggest thing when you're looking at cornerbacks like this is they got to have those traits that you just can't teach.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Absolutely. Now, to get us kind of moving along just a little bit here, we have the next Broncos pick, Isaiah Wilson, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. And this is a mountain of a man. He came in at 350, 360, I think is what it was. Absolutely huge. And
crazy.
There's no bad weight on his body at all. I mean, he is built. This is a huge man. Very strong, very powerful. Now, why did you go with Isaiah Wilson here over, potentially like, let's see, Jeremy Chin, someone else for the defense? Why specifically Isaiah Wilson here?
Well, this is my Juwan James insurance pick. And I mean, the guy, Juwan James, I'm talking about, is been injured since Miami. He's injured as a Bronco. You don't really know what you're going to get with him. And if I'm thinking right, he has an out in his contract after this year. So adding a guy with potential like Isaiah Wilson, who's, like you said, 6'7", 350, can move really well and has really long arms, letting him sit for a year under Munchak, I mean, I really like that.
Yeah, and Isaiah Wilson, he's actually one of my guys. I've been touting him to our colleague Nick Kendall for a while. Big fan of his. And I don't think he's a better prospect than Andrew Thomas, but I actually like him a little bit more than Andrew Thomas. Mm-hmm. And especially for Denver, being able to get him and sit him on the bench and just coach with him and having Mike Munchak work with him, getting those finer details of being an NFL tackle down with the concerns about Juwan James, that he's likely going to end up seeing some playing time this year as well. So just it's basically the perfect storm for Denver of being able to get this guy that can come in and play right away, but also be willing to sit on the bench and need to sit on the bench and be taught. So this is actually probably my favorite pick out of the whole draft. And just, man, kudos on this one. That is my favorite pick of it.
Well, really the entire third round of your draft, you actually knocked out of the park. You got some really good value. You took a couple of players that I know that Eric is really high on, including your next pick for the Denver Broncos, 83, I believe is what it is. Akeem Davis-Gaither, the linebacker, safety, really kind of prototype. Everything. You don't really know where he's going to play. Right. Player from Appalachian State. Now, what is the biggest thing that sings out to you? Because I know, as I said, Eric is huge on Akeem Davis-Gaither. He's what Isaiah Simmons light is what Eric likes to say.
Yeah. Can you zoom in that some on mold? Yeah.
Yeah. I think he just brings something to the Broncos linebacker room that we don't have, which is athleticism, one, right? I mean, as much as I like Todd Davis and I think he's underrated, I think Akeem Davis-Gaither offers a lot more potential in coverage. And also, I think Nick Kendall, who you guys are with, tweeted today that if you play in Fangio's scheme, you have to be able to play in the slot a little bit as a linebacker. And this is a guy that did that a lot at Appalachian State. He played up in a lot of different areas. He played in middle linebacker, as you said, outside linebacker, rushing the passer, and in coverage.
Yeah, he's definitely a piece that you can move around and just have in the slot. And as you're saying, is in this Fangio defense. And Nick Kendall actually did another article on this today, that being able to play outside, and that Todd Davis was one of just a handful of linebackers in the NFL who played 100 snaps at linebacker and out in the slot, and I think another position as well. So having that versatility to be able to move around in this Vic Fangio defense is such a value for it. Mm-hmm. And as Lance said, I love the Isaiah Wilson pick, but I love this pick almost as much. Big fan of Akeem Davis-Gaither, and I can still remember what actually I can't remember now that I think about it, but I remember the feeling that he gave me when I first watched him, but I can't remember what game it was. That's what I was trying to remember. But he stood out immediately, popped out on tape, and it doesn't matter what game you turn on, he's popping out on tape at some point.
Yep.
Right.
Now your last pick number 95. This is a guy that's probably not going to be there, and he got passed over a lot of times, and especially after his combine goes out 4.37, 4.39, something like that. Jonathan Taylor, the running back out of Wisconsin. What's the biggest reason why you would take a running back that high, especially with someone like Jonathan Taylor, who 2, almost 3 years in a row rushes for 2,000 yards, that heavy Wisconsin Badger run, smash mouth, pound the football down your throat style of game. That's a lot of miles on a guy. And to me, I like the pick, but at the same time, it just doesn't, I don't know. After being burned by Monte Ball one time already previously, and we're seeing it now with Melvin Gordon and the drop off that he has had going into his second contract. Jonathan Taylor there is an immense value, and I really do like that pick a lot. But give me just a little bit of analysis. Was it just the value there, or do you see something that he can bring this Broncos offense that Phillip Lindsay just doesn't do, and neither does Royce Freeman?
Well, one, you nailed it with the value. The value is crazy there. So I went into this not thinking I was going to take a running back one, unless it was a receiving back, maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire, someone like that. But the value is too much, and I think he brings what the Broncos thought Royce Freeman was going to bring to the offense a little bit. And that's what I was thinking when I made that selection. Having a tougher runner next to Phillip Lindsay that's going to make those runs up in the tackles.
Yeah, there you go.
Definitely makes sense. And at this point, again, coming to the value, you can't pass up on Jonathan Taylor at this point.
Yeah.
Just if he happens to fall now post-combine, highly doubt he's going to fall that far. I mean, there might still be some concerns about the miles he had because, let's face it, Wisconsin, they like to use up their running backs. But with thinking that it'll change, as it likely would with Jonathan Taylor, what way would you possibly go? Now, I know if I remember right, the next pick was another one of my guys, and Michael Onwenu, the lineman out of Michigan, who's a wonderful guard. Would that be a possible way you go as you try to help solidify the interior offensive line, or would there be a different running back you look at? Or there's been a lot of rumors about Denver pairing up 2 receivers in the top 100. Would there be a receiver at this stage that you'd probably be looking at?
Right. I mean, it may be a little bit of a reach, but after his 40, I'm not sure. Devin Duvernay, I like a lot. He ran a 4.39, I believe, at the combine.
Yeah,
and
right.
He's built like a running back. You could play him in the slot. Good yak guy. I think that if you drafted a Ruggs and Duvernay, you just got a lot faster.
Yeah, not only a lot faster, you got a lot more versatile on offense because of everything that Duvernay can bring to the offense.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, dude, it was great to have you on. Great insight, great analysis, man. Thank you once again for joining us today on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Let me get this out of the way here. You can find Joey at JRDrafts on Twitter. So make sure you guys go blow up that Twitter handle, ask him all your questions, and he's more than willing to give you some of your insights. Joey, anything else you want to say to everybody before you leave?
I just want to say appreciate for having me on.
Yeah, not a problem, man.
Well,
hey, you go ahead, Eric.
Before we get you out of here, I just want to say, guys, do make sure you go follow him. He's a guy that I remember seeing on Twitter. He's definitely caught my attention. He's a really good draft scout and just does a wonderful job, man. So keep up the good work, man.
Thank you.
You'll make it, man. Just trust me on that. You'll make it at some point, and you definitely deserve to be in this field.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, appreciate you. We appreciate you. Mile high salute, buddy. We'll catch you later.
Yep, for sure.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right. Now, guys, once again, that was Joey Richards at JRDrafts. Now, we're going to get to you guys' questions now that we're done running through his mock drafts. And, Joey, once again, we do appreciate you. We do have a Super Chat donation coming in here with Blake Williams, a $2 donation. Blake, we do appreciate you, man. Thoughts on Antonio Gandy Golden in the 7th round? Eric, what do you think?
I think that's going to – I just don't think that he's going to fall that far. This is a guy who, in my opinion, is a top 100 player. And that's kind of rough to say because I have a lot of receivers in my top 100, but he's definitely got the talent. He's got the skills for it. Just a very tremendous player too that has the NFL skill sets on what you're looking for to be in the NFL. So I absolutely I don't love him, but I really like him somewhere about round 3, round 4, and 7th round. I think would be. I mean, if he's there, then heck yeah. But I just don't think that he falls that far.
Now, long, lengthy guy too, really lengthy. I like it. Now, let's see here. There was a couple of other ones that I'd seen while we were doing everything. Let's see here. Kenneth Murray wasn't a Mike linebacker until his freshman year at OU. All 3 years he was highly rated. Do you think his injuries allow him to drop to the 3rd round? He still has room to grow. Now, I'm going to kind of shoot this one down just a little bit because the other day, and it was kind of an interesting take on this whole situation, it was his post-combine mock draft. Daniel Jeremiah had the Broncos actually taking Kenneth Murray at number 15 overall. Like, I don't necessarily believe that there's any chance that Kenneth Murray is going to fall down into the middle of day 2, early day 3, where the Broncos can, make him. They might have to go up and go get him, but I don't think that there's any way that he falls past, say, even Oakland at 19 or the Baltimore Ravens at 28. Eric, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't think that he falls to the 3rd round. I have a hard time seeing him fall out of the 1st, but it really depends on what happens with Patrick Queen. If he does fall out of the 1st, I think he goes early 2nd. But I don't think that he falls to the 3rd. And then got to get to TG here, who came in with a $5 donation. Thank you, TJ, man. We really appreciate that. And he asks, let's go get CeeDee Lamb and Chase Claypool. Man, with what Chase Claypool did at the combine, like, it's hard not to be just enamored with him. I mean, that size with that athletic ability, just tremendous. But the thing is that with CeeDee Lamb and Chase Claypool, they bring a lot to the offense, but they don't bring everything that the Broncos are looking for. They both lack that real speed that true deep threat ability that you're looking at being, because even though Chase Claypool ran a 4.43, I think official 40 time, he's not a true speed guy to go take the top off the defense. So that's the big concern there with that. But CeeDee Lamb, I'd absolutely love it. And now if you're pairing CeeDee Lamb with like a John Hightower a little bit later, then you're getting exactly what the Broncos are looking for from the receiver group.
Yeah, that's actually a really good pairing. I like that a lot. Now with Chase Claypool, is there still teams that are actually going to try to move him to tight end?
Yeah, I'm sure there are, because here's the thing is, you look at Evan Ingram, and Evan Ingram had a very similar day at the Combine. I can't remember what his 40 time was, but I know the other things were similar to that. So they still use him as a tight end, so to speak, but it's more of a bigger receiver that's playing in the slot and used a little bit in that tight end type role. That's kind of what I see happening with Chase Claypool. So tight end in name, but more receiver. I mean, there might be a team also that thinks that, hey, we can get him and we can possibly get like a Darren Waller type tight end out of him. So I think that's what some teams are looking at. It's just that kind of tight end.
Right, that big body over the middle of the field playing out of the slot, kind of a matchup nightmare. Again, it's a little too fast for a linebacker, a little too big for a safety to take on a one-on-one situation. Really that weird chess piece that you see a lot of these teams are going to as far as the tight end position is concerned. Now, let's see here. There was one that I wanted to get to right away, and we had talked about it just briefly before we got going. And if I can find it, I will definitely bring it up. That one was a good one. Yes. Who are your top 5 day 3 running backs that can make an immediate impact for the Broncos?
Well, I mean, this is kind of hard to answer because, the running back class isn't deep at all.
Absolutely not. It's terrible.
So, got to take a shot at Lance about that one. That was a take he had on the podcast a few weeks ago. But looking at day 3 backs, I mean, there's been, and this actually answers another question in the chat with A.J. Dillon. He wouldn't be one of my top 5 backs, but there is a lot of conversation pairing him with the Broncos. I'm not sold on him. A lot of people are saying he's the next Derrick Henry. I think that is actually a pretty silly comparison.
Yeah,
he's not as agile. He's not as sweet. Doesn't have the sweet feet like he does. And just Derrick Henry likes to plow through contact. I spent a lot of time watching A.J. Dillon and his tape and everything, and he tries to plow through contact, but he still goes down relatively early. So I'm not a big fan of him, but a guy like Tony Jones, who's a 3-down back, can run, catch, block. James Robinson, he would be a guy up there. Darius Anderson or Jet Anderson.
I was just about to say him.
Another one. Salvin Ahmed of Washington, he's another one that he's not that tough guy, but he brings some good speed to the offense. And I'm kind of like with Nick on this, but not quite exactly with Nick on this, about pairing speed on top of speed at the running back position. I would like a little bit of a guy who'd be tougher between the tackles. But if that's the route they go, he's definitely got to look at. And then DJ Dallas, Levante Bellamy, what did I say? Jason Huntley? I can't remember if I said Jason Huntley. Maybe Antonio Gibson falls there. I don't think he really will, though. Keyshawn Vaughn, he's a possible name there. There's plenty of guys that Denver could look at day 3 to go get that.
That Salvin Ahmed, I want to kind of go back and touch on him just a little bit. I got to take a little bit of a look at his tape. Very good vision, I think. Very good vision, especially for a zone scheme. Now, we're going to go to Black Knight here. He comes in and he says, I say trade for Trent Williams. I think he would be a welcome sight for our left tackle position. We'd be treated much better than he was at Washington. Now, I kind of want to shoot this down really bad. I mean, I understand the people wanting to go and upgrade over Garrett Bowles, but with the financial situation the Broncos are finding themselves in, especially given Garrett Bowles and the improvement that he did have over the last half of the season last year, I don't think trading for Trent Williams is a way that they're going to go. I might be all right with them taking a tackle round 1, say if like Tristan Wirfs is there, Andrew Thomas maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't really agree with that. I think the Broncos are going to go in looking for a depth rotational guy, somebody they can kind of develop just a little bit and get up in case Garrett Bowles does fail and then go that route. Trading for Trent Williams, to me, just a little bit too rich for my blood. Eric, what do you think?
I definitely agree. And here's the biggest thing is I've had multiple conversations about this, and basically it seems like Denver is content going forward with Garrett Bowles as their left tackle. And on top of that is the biggest thing is if they go get a left tackle, what are they going to do with Garrett Bowles? They're hoping that Mike Munchak is able to turn him around, and that last season he did start to show that. After the bye week, he was becoming one of the best tackles in the NFL and had a strong week after that, or strong weeks after that. But what are you going to do with him? I mean, you're not going to move him over to right tackle. He can't play at guard. And just to shoot that down is the reason why he can't play guard is because when you're working on the inside, your hand technique is so much more important. You've got to be able to hold up with your hand technique. And the hand technique is the biggest issue that comes to mind with Garrett Bowles. Is he likes to grab, he likes to hold. That's going to happen a lot more often on the inside with quicker interior defensive linemen that bring good power. He's going to grab on, he's going to hold him, he's going to take him to the ground, and there's going to be a lot more flags going. Right side is just a matter of it's easier to go from left tackle to left guard than it is go to left to right. Basically, here's the comparison that I can't remember who it was throughout the other day, but try doing everything. If you're right-handed, try doing everything with your left hand for a whole day. That's what it is, because you have to completely flip your technique, and you get used to doing it on what becomes your football dominant side, that you got to just do it all opposite, and it's a little bit harder to do. So I don't see them going for Trent Williams. I think that his injury history is going to be problematic for them a little bit. I think what Washington's asking for is going to be problematic for them a little bit. And it also comes down to what are they going to do with Garrett Bowles? That's the biggest thing is, and I know that everybody wants to get Jawan James. I mean, if they're getting Trent Williams and moving Trent Williams to right tackle, hey, all right, I'd consider it a little bit more, but I just don't see it for left tackle. I don't see them going after somebody to be a left tackle for them this year unless Bowles gets hurt.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I would be okay, maybe, depending on which guy fell to 15. The value would have to be right. Mekhi Becton, maybe I would be okay with if he fell to 15 and the top 3 wide receivers are gone and you have an opportunity to take Mekhi Becton out of Louisville. I could see the Broncos doing something like that. Maybe. I don't know. But I just don't think that they're going to do that. I think that they are going to address either the defensive side of the football on the interior defensive line at the cornerback position, or they're going to take one of these talented wide receivers in this class. Now, Cody Chase comes in on YouTube, and pardon my voice, guys. I am sorry. I'm trying to battle through this so we can get a good episode to you guys. Cody Chase says, if we trade back and get a pick between 25 and 32, which wide receiver would be a better fit, Denzel Mims or Justin Jefferson? Now, I'm coming around on Mims a lot, especially after the combine and the way that he blew up. I mean, his athletic testing is off the charts. There was a tweet that I saw a couple days after he went and just destroyed Indianapolis that was comparing him, just the numbers comparison, not a play style comparison here, but a numbers comparison with the size and the length that he has to Julio Jones. So I see him being a big riser with that kind of size, that kind of speed and athleticism. He could sneak himself into the middle to late part of round 1. I do like Denzel Mims a lot, but I know that Erick's probably going to go in a little bit of a different direction here based on the versatility that Justin Jefferson presents. What do you think?
Actually, I'm going to go with Denzel Mims, and here's
really
the reason for that.
Wow.
And here's the reason for that is because you just assumed that I was going to go Justin Jefferson. No, all joking aside, is actually the reason why I'm going with Denzel Mims is I'm actually a huge fan of him. I have been very high on him for a while now, and I like Justin Jefferson. But I think that Denzel Mims is bringing a lot more to your offense than Justin Jefferson does, and the biggest reason for that is that we've seen that Denzel Mims has the track speed. He can take the top off of defense. He's got plenty of speed to do it. He can be used that way, and he does a good job of getting off of contact and getting downfield quickly. Another reason why I like him is that if you want a fierce blocker on your outside at wide receiver, Denzel Mims. He is probably the best blocking receiver in this class outside of Juwan Jennings out of Tennessee. And just credit to where credit's due is Henry Ruggs is also a really good blocker too. With that size, I mean, that's just tremendous ability that he has. But Denzel Mims, I mean, bringing that speed, bringing that physical play that he has, and his ability to contort his body and go get catches placed anywhere around him is just tremendous. And Joey, when he was on here, he made a comment about his similarity to Sutton, and he does, because he is able to go get the ball at the high point. Yeah. But he brings a lot more to the offense than just that. And he brings a versatile skill set that can be used in a complementary way to Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I just think that the testing that Justin Jefferson had running a 4.4 really helped him a lot, and that's going to get him into the tail end of the first round. And I just think that the ability that he has working over the middle of the field out of the slot, and also being able to play outside and go get the ball on a deep ball a little bit, I think it's going to just a versatility there, and to be able to attack all different angles of the field. Mims can do that as well, and he does do a lot better of a job going up and high pointing the football, and people get him credit for that. 39-inch vertical definitely helps him be able to do that. And he has 34-inch arms, like offensive tackle arms, just incredible length. So I can see that. I definitely understand where you're going with that. All right, let's see if we can get it. Go ahead.
All right, guys. We're running a little bit long, so we're going to do this final call here. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in. We'll answer them the best we can. We've got enough time for a few more questions. So
yeah.
And there is actually one question, that I want to take, and it's from Anubis GOE off of YouTube saying, another question. Could there be a scenario where Simmons gets signed and we tag Shelby Harris and try to trade him? And to just put this very simply and bluntly, and Lance may want to take it, but I'm not sure there would be a need to for him really, is no. I don't think that Denver is super focused on getting a deal done with Justin Simmons prior to the start of free agency. I think they are set on tagging him, going through free agency, and then coming back to working on a long-term negotiation or long-term deal, and coming back to the negotiation table after they've kind of played through the draft and free agency, just as Denver has typically done in previous years when they've used the franchise tag with big-time players. With Shelby Harris I don't think that the issue with trying to trade him is that he'd have to okay it. He has to sign the paperwork and all this stuff like that. And I'm not sure what Denver would get back from him would be enough to balance out the fact that he would possibly get a third-round pick, compensatory pick for the Broncos in 2022.
And I agree with that, Eric. I definitely agree with that. There's no need to do that. There's no need to get Justin Simmons. I think Shelby Harris is going to price himself out of the Broncos market just a little bit. I don't think that they're going to yes. Thank you very much, Terry Randall, coming in with a $5 donation. But with Shelby Harris, I don't think that he's going to price himself out of the Broncos market. I think that they're going to go in a different direction there, maybe get a little bit younger and target kind of the draft in that they might go after a big defensive free agent, like say a DJ Reader, who I know that you're not quite necessarily as high on for this Broncos scheme as most others, but there's a lot to like about DJ Reader. As far as Simmons goes, with the franchise tag, he's already on the franchise tag as well. Now, I don't want people to kind of take this the wrong way, but there is absolutely no need for anybody to panic about no news with the contract negotiation of Justin Simmons. The contract will get done, and it will probably get done on what is the deadline, July 15th. Just the way that John Elway works. He's going to drag this out, and deadlines spur action. So just because he doesn't have a long-term deal signed before July 15th doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So just be patient. Have some patience. It's kind of a virtue in these kinds of situations because we saw it with Demaryius Thomas. We saw it with Von Miller. So we're going to see it probably again with Justin Simmons.
We have seen it with every single person that John Elway has tagged.
That's absolutely correct. That's correct.
Matthew Prater, Von Miller, and Demaryius Thomas.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. Now, Elijah Ward coming in on YouTube, and he says, how do you guys feel about the Broncos going after Trey Waynes in free agency? Now, that's an intriguing option.
Except he was terrible last year. If Denver wants to go after a guy who had a rough year, might be a little bit cheaper because of that rough year, and hope that Vic Fangio and Ed Donatell, who they have done plenty of times of turning around a career of a cornerback, if they want to go that route and try and take that risk with Trey Waynes, then I can be on board with that because who knows if it's going to work out. But I just have an issue with how much is that cost going to be, how much guaranteed money is there going to be, and how easy would that contract to be after this year if he continues to struggle. It's just a high risk that there is a high reward, but you got to be cautious with how you take that high risk. So it's not a terrible idea. But it's just he was really bad this last year that you just got to be cautious.
Now, Wendell and Grotker coming in with that. Is that euros? I think that's euros. €2 donation. Which running backs do you like the most? Eric kind of went over this just a little bit. Thank you, Wendell. We do appreciate you joining the show. Now, let's do the top side of this draft. Give us your top 5 running backs in this class.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Cam Akers, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But no, I do. I am a big fan of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's actually my number 2 running back once I get around to completely adjusting my board around, taking over that number 2 spot from J.K. Dobbins, who I like, but I do question his ability to be a true 3-down back. DeAndre Swift, he's the top back in this class for me. He can do a lot to an offense. I mean, running, receiving, all that stuff. He's got that. He's got the full tool set, as does Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Cam Akers is a guy that I wasn't super sold on in January, but the more I watched, the more research I did into him and all that stuff like that, the more I kind of fell in love with him a little bit. He played behind a terrible offensive line at Florida State. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I could have beaten Florida State's offensive line.
And the thing is, he was always finishing runs falling forward, and with positive yardage too.
Yep, he won a lot by himself, which is tremendous. And I would like to see him because despite the crap that the Broncos offensive line gets, they're not as terrible as a lot of fans want to make him out to be. And I want to see what he can do potentially behind some competent run blocking. And I would actually like to see him go to the Broncos and seeing what he could do. He's very intriguing to me.
Now, where do you think that the Broncos would have to draft Cam Akers to get him in Denver?
Probably with one of their first 2 third-round picks, maybe if they're lucky. I can see him going end of the second round even.
Yeah. Would it be too rich to maybe take him at 46?
At 46, for me personally, it is a little bit too rich. But it's not a super reach for me because I think he is, with my adjustments that I'm making, everything like that, he ends up falling to be like somewhere between 50 and 60 on my overall players. So
a couple picks.
It's a slight reach, but not a super reach.
Right.
So I mean, a slight trade down would be good for it.
Right. Now, just the reason why I asked that is because we've seen kind of a situation with Adam Gotsis and the Broncos really liking Adam Gotsis in, 2017, right? Yeah. I think. Yeah. So they really liked him, and they didn't think that he was going to actually fall to their 3rd round pick. So instead of running the risk of him not getting there, they decided to take him with his 2nd round pick. So I could see a kind of a similar situation to that. I mean, I might be wrong on that whole deal, but that's the way that I remember it playing out. Now, to get one more question in, guys, before we get out of here, I'm going to go to Bill 1293, and he says, which free agent inside linebacker out of Nick Kwiatkowski, Joe Schobert, and Corey Littleton does Denver have the best chance to land? And I'm going to ask this question for you, Eric, to kind of tie off on that. Which one fits with Vic Fangio the best?
Well, obviously with Nick, you have a guy who's played in a scheme before, but I think he's very similar to Josie Jewell, that you're not really upgrading the position. I don't like him as a starter in the NFL. I think he's a good depth piece. The guy I would like to see the most is Corey Littleton because he brings that athleticism and the ability to go out into the slot and cover in the slot that you kind of want to look for and find in this Vic Fangio scheme. Because as we highlighted earlier in the show, that is a tremendous part of being part in this Vic Fangio scheme. But before we do get out of here, there were actually a couple more questions that I did want to get to.
Oh, okay.
One from TJ asking, CJ Henderson at 15, what do you think? And somebody else actually kind of made the comment in there that I have actually seen CJ Henderson lay down instead of making a tackle. And that is very true. I've noted that multiple times on his tape. This guy is basically allergic to tackling. And if you're a team that doesn't value tackling from your cornerbacks, he is the number 2 corner for you because he is so tremendous in coverage. But we know with Vic Fangio that he has a preference for tackling cornerbacks, which likely takes him off the board a little bit for the Broncos, or at least lowers him down a little bit. Tackling is such a tremendous thing. And then the last question was Buona Beast asking, does Epineza fall to round 2? I think yes. I don't think he does. I think that at the very least he probably goes mid-20s. The thing with his 40 time is that's what the big issue is his 40 time, and how he ran a 1.78 official 10-yard split and all this stuff like that. I get the concerns there, but he's never been a super explosive athletic pass rusher. That's not his game. He's strong. He's going to win with quick. He's going to win with good technique. He's going to win with quick moves with his upper body, with his hands. And I think that's going to be a value that teams are going to have because they're going to know how to use that. It's very similar to DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead with the 49ers with how they're being used. And I think that you can get a similar thing with that. And also, I think at his pro day, I think he's going to run a little bit faster than what he did at the combine.
Well, if there's any concerns about AJ Epinesa with just as you said, he's never been a really true bend and like burst and bend kind of an edge rusher. He's really kind of upper body, really technical, really good handwork and stuff like that. I mean, if you're looking for him to be that true Von Miller, Khalil Mack-esque quick first step, get around the corner, dip, bend, get that angle, and then reach out and swipe, that's not the guy you're looking for. If you wanted that from AJ Epinesa, you're looking at him completely the wrong way. And just because he's listed as an edge next to his name doesn't mean that he's going to be an edge at the next level. That's a big thing. He's going to be an interior defensive lineman or a defensive end in a 3-4 scheme, probably playing a 5 tech and maybe a 7 tech out, like lined up directly in front of the tackle in front of him, and playing inside more than playing on the outside and getting around the edge. So now, guys, with that, Eric, are we going to wrap it up here, or you want one more?
I just want to touch on that a little bit. With AJ Epinesa, qualifying him as an edge isn't right. Qualifying him as an interior defensive lineman isn't right. He is a true defensive end. He's a guy that either, if you're running a 3-4 front, he's going to be, and yes, the whole base defenses, that's kind of fading a little bit with teams wanting to go with more defensive back, less guys up front. Obviously, there's some issues there. But just talking about your basic defenses, your 3-4 and your 4-3 fronts, he is a guy that he's a defensive end. He's either going to be your 3-4 defensive end or your 4-3 defensive end. As you said, your 5 tech or 7 tech. That's where you're going to line him up at. You can move him around a little bit, but that's where you're looking at there. And guys, as Lance is getting to, we are going to be wrapping it up today. But we have good news if you guys haven't seen it before. If you guys have not had your answer question and you want to ask it again, we will be live again, not next week. Well, we will be live again next week at the same time, but we also be live tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We now have 2 days a week. We go on Fridays and Saturdays, 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and that's 7:30 Eastern Time. And if you're me living in Alaska, that is 3:30 Alaska Standard Time. So, guys, if you guys didn't have your questions answered and you really want to ask it again, come join us tomorrow, same time, same place, same network.
Yep. And again, guys, if you didn't know any of that news, you can always get live updates on the show at DVDD_pod, and you can always follow us both on Twitter. You can find me at Sanderson MHH, and for Eric at Erick Trickel. Also follow the website handle at Huddle Up Pod. You can get quick and live updates on the website and on the show for if you have any kind of questions or anything like that. Everything is updated live every single week. Eric, I see you got some concern on your face.
No, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to say that I meant to say earlier is next week's show on next Friday, we are doing another live mock draft where you guys get to come in and be the general managers. We're your scouts. You guys get to ask us your questions, make the picks. Very excited to do this. We had a blast doing it last time. Yes. You guys got to join there, be there for that, and just go through this mock draft with us that you guys are making the selections for. You guys get a vote in the comment stream, and we are planning this for next Friday because next Friday is the 13th, and free agency starts on the 17th. We wanted to get one last one in before free agency, and then we'll probably do another one probably at the end of the month, and then probably a couple weeks prior to the NFL draft. So you guys, again, make sure you're there for that. It's a blast, you guys.
It's so much fun. Now, before we get out of here, guys, I just do want to say, go to Apple Podcasts and give us a quick review, quick 5-star review, and unique, organic way to help support the site, help support the podcast as well. Get our content out to some new listeners. Now, with that, guys, I just want to wish you all a great night. Y'all stay safe and take care out there. We'll see you later.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.